Did Nora Aunor leave behind a fortune so vast that even her own family is still unraveling it? Or has the internet built a myth bigger than the money itself? For decades, she wasn't just a superstar. She was an industry, a name that sold movies, records, and history. And when her story came to an end, a new one quietly began, fueled by whispers of hidden assets, secret accounts, and numbers that keep climbing every time fans retell them. Some say her children walked into a life-changing inheritance overnight. Others believe the real wealth is locked away in properties, contracts, and rights no one outside the family has ever seen. Today, we're stepping into the space between what's been confirmed and what's been claimed, tracing the rumors, the math, and the mystery behind the fortune everyone keeps talking about. By the end, you'll see why the story refuses to settle into a single number, and why every answer seems to open an even bigger question for everyone tonight. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming uploads and deep dives like this one. But that opening question leads straight into the figure that keeps echoing across comment sections, fan forums, and late-night live streams. A number so often repeated that many people treat it like a confirmed fact. The most common estimate floating around places Nora Aunor's fortune somewhere in the $15 to $20 million range. It sounds clean, impressive, and easy to divide. But here's where the story starts to blur. That number doesn't come from court filings, bank statements, or any official estate documents. It comes from celebrity wealth websites and online trackers that build profiles using public appearances, past contracts, and industry averages. Fans who dig deeper point out that these sites rarely account for private spending, management fees, unpaid obligations, or assets that were never publicly registered in the first place. Some online voices argue the real total must be much higher, pointing to her decades of box office success and record sales as proof that the published estimates are lowball figures. Others go in the opposite direction, suggesting that long-term medical care, personal generosity, and behind-the-scenes expenses may have quietly reduced what was left behind. And then there's the way the number itself spreads. One post turns into a screenshot turns into a headline turns into a fact, repeated thousands of times. Each step adds confidence, even if no new proof appears. But as fans keep crunching the same figures, another idea starts to surface. Maybe the real story isn't about a single dollar amount at all. Because money in this case isn't just cash in a bank. It's tied to something far more complicated, and that's where the next layer of speculation begins. That last thought opens the door to one of the most talked about ideas in this entire story. The belief that whatever number people keep quoting only scratches the surface. Because in fan circles, the real treasure isn't imagined as stacks of cash. It's imagined as things you can't easily look up, measure, or confirm. Online discussions often point to real estate first. Some claim she quietly invested in prime properties in Metro Manila during the height of her career, when land prices were a fraction of what they are today. Others speculate about homes in provincial areas, tucked away from the public eye, passed through family names or longtime associates. None of these claims come with verified titles or public records, but they keep resurfacing, year after year, like a puzzle no one can quite finish.
Totoo? Bakit nagkaroon ganyan? Paano? Sila sa pagganong-ganon yan.
Then there's the idea of overseas holdings. A few fans suggest that international tours and projects may have opened doors to foreign accounts or properties abroad. Again, there is no documentation to back this up. Just the belief that someone of her status would naturally think beyond local investments. Memorabilia adds another layer. Costumes, awards, rare recordings, and personal items from her peak years are often described as priceless pieces of entertainment history. Some fans believe private collectors would pay staggering amounts for the right items, even if they've never been publicly listed or appraised. But the most persistent claim revolves around royalties, films that still air, songs that still stream, performances that still generate licensing fees. The idea is that the real wealth isn't sitting still. It's quietly moving, growing, and paying out over time. And that's where the conversation shifts again. Because if all of this were true, fans ask, why hasn't anyone close to her clarified it? That question leads straight into the silence that followed, and the rumors that grew in it. That lingering question about unconfirmed assets and quiet wealth only grew louder when the people closest to her chose not to say much at all. After the initial public statements asking for privacy, the conversation around her estate seemed to stop, at least officially. But online, it did the exact opposite. Fans quickly began reading into every word, every pause, and every absence of detail. Some interpreted the family's silence as nothing more than a normal legal process, the kind that happens when lawyers and paperwork take over. Others saw it as a sign that something bigger was unfolding behind closed doors, something too complicated or sensitive to be shared publicly. Social media added fuel almost instantly. Posts started circulating that hinted at disagreements, emotional reactions, and private conversations that were never meant for the public. Screenshots were shared without sources. Quotes appeared without names. Each claim was framed as an inside story, even when no one could trace it back to a real person or a verified account. The most common rumor suggested that not everyone was happy with how things were being handled. Some fans believed certain heirs felt left out of key decisions. Others claimed there were debates over who should control properties, contracts, or future earnings tied to her name. Again, none of these stories came with court documents, official statements, or on-the-record interviews to back them up. But in the absence of clear information, speculation found room to grow. The quieter the family remained, the louder the theories became. And that's where another layer enters the picture. Because even if every rumor is taken with a grain of salt, there's one thing that doesn't rely on online chatter at all. It's written into the law itself, and it shapes what could and couldn't have happened behind the scenes. That shift from online whispers to legal reality is where many fans believe the real story gets complicated. Because no matter how many theories circulate, there's one framework that quietly sits above all of them: the rules of inheritance themselves. In the Philippines, children are considered compulsory heirs. In simple terms, that means they're legally entitled to a portion of a parent's estate, even if a will exists. A last testament can shape how things are divided, but it can't completely remove those guaranteed shares. For fans trying to piece together the puzzle, this becomes a key detail that either supports or challenges their favorite theories. Some online discussions suggest she may have left a detailed will that assigns specific assets instead of simple cash amounts. One child receiving a property, another receiving rights to certain works, another managing future royalties. It's a cleaner story than a straight split, and to many, it feels more personal, more intentional. Others go in a different direction, arguing that if there was no formal will, the process would fall entirely into statutory rules. That would mean lawyers, valuations, and court-supervised divisions. A slow, technical process that doesn't match the dramatic stories circulating online. Then there's the idea of favored heirs, a concept that shows up again and again in fan threads. Some believe emotional closeness or involvement in her later career could have influenced how responsibilities or assets were assigned. But without documents, this remains a narrative built on perception rather than proof. What keeps the debate alive is how little of this is visible from the outside. Legal proceedings don't play out on social media. They happen in offices, filings, and meetings that never make headlines. And that leads fans to do something else instead. They start doing the math themselves, breaking down the rumored numbers and trying to imagine what each share might really look like. That turn toward legal structure quickly slides into something far more hands-on. Calculators, comment threads, and long posts where fans try to turn rumor into something that feels concrete. If no one will release the numbers, many decide to make their own. The most common starting point is still that familiar estimate in the $15 to $20 million range. From there, the logic becomes simple. 5 children. Divide the total. On paper, it turns into a figure that looks life-changing almost instantly. Several million per person, just like that. It's clean, dramatic, and easy to picture. But that's where other voices step in to slow the story down. They point out that estates don't move like bank transfers. Lawyers take fees. Properties need to be appraised. Taxes and obligations come off the top. And not every asset can be split evenly without being sold, which opens another layer of decisions and delays. Some fans argue that even if the total were accurate, much of it could be tied up in land, homes, or long-term contracts. That means one child might receive something that generates income slowly over years, while another might end up with something that has value on paper but can't easily be turned into cash. Then there's the timing. Estate processes can stretch on far longer than people expect. Months can turn into years before anything feels final, especially when properties or rights are involved. What makes this part of the conversation so addictive is how personal it feels. People imagine themselves in that position, running the same numbers, making the same choices. It turns a distant celebrity story into something relatable. But just as the math starts to feel grounded, another idea pulls the conversation back into long-term thinking. Because some fans believe the real value isn't in what gets divided once, it's in what keeps paying out quietly, year after year. That shift from one-time payouts to long-term value changes how fans look at the entire picture. Because if properties and cash can be counted and divided, rights and royalties feel almost endless, like a stream instead of a pool. The idea starts with her films, titles that still air on television, performances that get licensed for international platforms. Every time a network replays a classic or a service adds a film to its catalog, fans imagine a small payment quietly making its way back to her estate. The same thinking applies to her music, where streaming platforms and re-releases keep older songs alive for new audiences. Some online discussions go even further, suggesting that her name itself has value. Image rights, likeness permissions, and the use of her story in documentaries or biographical projects could all, in theory, generate future income. In this version of the story, her children didn't just inherit what she owned, they inherited what she represents. But here's where the disclaimers become critical. Ownership of these rights isn't always straightforward. Contracts signed decades ago can assign control to studios, labels, or production companies. Some deals expire, others don't. Without seeing those agreements, no one outside the inner circle can say who truly benefits when her work gets used again. That uncertainty fuels even more theories. Some fans believe certain children may have been given responsibility over managing these rights rather than receiving a lump sum. Others think everything flows into a shared pool that gets divided over time. What keeps this angle alive is how invisible it is. You can't drive past a royalty check the way you can a house. You can't point to a streaming payment the way you can a bank account. And just when this long game perspective starts to feel like the final answer, another rumor appears. One that suggests none of this is as open or straightforward as it seems. Because some believe the entire estate might be structured in a way designed to stay out of the public eye altogether. That idea of invisible income and quiet control leads straight into one of the most dramatic claims floating around online: the belief that much of the estate isn't meant to be seen at all. Instead of a simple division, some fans suggest everything was placed into a private trust. In these theories, trust becomes the ultimate layer of protection. Assets don't sit under individual names. Properties don't immediately change hands. Payments don't arrive as a single headline-grabbing sum. Instead, everything flows through a structure that releases value slowly, under specific rules. According to these online discussions, this setup would make sense for someone as famous as Nora Aunor. It could shield her family from public scrutiny, protect assets from outside claims, and keep long-term control over how her legacy is used. Some even imagine monthly or yearly distributions, rather than one-time inheritances. Others take the rumor further, claiming certain properties or rights might be locked in place, unable to be sold without approval from all beneficiaries or a designated manager. In this version of the story, the fortune becomes something that has to be maintained, not just spent. But just like the other theories, this one rests entirely on speculation. No trust documents have been made public. No legal filings confirm that such a structure exists. What keeps it alive is how neatly it explains the silence, the lack of visible changes, and the absence of clear numbers. For many fans, it feels like the perfect behind-the-scenes answer to a very public mystery. And yet, after all the rumors, calculations, and legal guesses, some people circle back to a simpler idea. Maybe the truth isn't extreme in either direction. Maybe it's not a massive hidden empire or a modest, shrinking estate. That brings the conversation to its final turn. The version of this story that tries to land somewhere in the middle, where drama meets reality. That step back from the most extreme rumors leads to a version of the story that many fans quietly consider the most believable. Not a hidden financial empire, not a surprisingly small estate either. Something in between. Solid, complex, and far less dramatic than the internet makes it sound. In this theory, the estate is thought to be made up of a mix of valuable property, ongoing royalties, and personal assets that don't always translate cleanly into cash. A house might be worth millions on paper, but that value only becomes real if someone decides to sell it. A catalog of films might generate steady income, but not in the kind of lump sums that make headlines. Supporters of this idea often point out how long her career spanned. Decades of success also mean decades of contracts, partnerships, and obligations. Some assets may still be tied to production companies or labels. Others may be shared with business partners or family members who were involved long before the final chapter of her life. In this version of events, each child's share wouldn't look the same. One might oversee properties. Another might handle rights and licensing. Another might receive a portion that's more liquid, like savings or investments. The value could be equal on paper, but completely different in form. What makes this theory stick is how ordinary it sounds compared to the others. It doesn't rely on secret accounts or hidden trusts. It relies on paperwork, lawyers, and practical decisions that rarely make for viral posts. And yet, even this grounded perspective doesn't fully quiet the curiosity. Because whether the fortune is modest, massive, or somewhere in between, one thing remains the same. The public still can't put a final number on it. Which brings the story to its closing thought. Maybe the reason this mystery keeps resurfacing isn't because of the money at all, but because of what her name still represents, long after the spotlight faded. That final thought brings everything full circle. After all the numbers, theories, and legal angles, The most powerful part of this story might be what never gets confirmed. No official total, no public breakdown. Just a legacy that keeps people talking, calculating, and imagining long after the cameras stopped rolling. For some fans, the mystery itself feels like a reflection of who she was. Larger than life, impossible to pin down, and always surrounded by stories that blurred the line between reality and legend. Whether her children inherited a quiet, steady stream of value or a headline-worthy fortune, the public may never see the full picture. And maybe that's exactly how it was meant to be. What remains clear is that her impact still generates attention, debate, and curiosity in a way few careers ever do. The money fades into the background, but the name keeps moving forward, carried by films, music, and the conversations that refuse to end. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming uploads.